Sender.
Hello and welcome to Boomer Live. Yeah, as we all know, we were anticipating for this result as England has secured a place in the semi-final, the second team to qualify into the semi-final. So, which means we know who are being qualified from Group One. Now they'll be waiting for who they're going to face. So they'll have to wait for another 24 hours to know who England will be facing in tomorrow's big contest. So wait for that. But it was a great game of cricket. Sri Lanka got off to a very good start. Everybody thought this could be the day where Sri Lanka could possibly pull off an upset. But there it was. England ballers pulled it back, restricted Sri Lanka to a mere score of 141, and they chased it on. Though they faced quite a lot of hiccups, but they got off to a flyer. Yet again, Sydney pitch coming into effect. Sri Lankan spinners were in operation. They did ball well in tandem. And yeah, we're going to be analyzing the game and we're going to deep dive into it and understand where it went wrong for Sri Lanka and what did England do right to get those stays over the line. I have Jaren with me. Jaren, what did you make of this game? Because it was a game where one team got off to very good starts. Power play was the important factor in this game. If you look in totality, the teams who use the power play well were able to really get a result.
Yeah, I think both the teams did use the power play very well. But what went really wrong, I felt, on the part of Sri Lanka was in the death overs, in both with the ball and with the bat. They kind of let it go, I would say. I felt if Sri Lanka had scored a little bit more, and when you see the innings progression, I mean, I think it'll be more clear that if Sri Lanka had scored a little bit more, or if I think also in terms of when they were bowling, I felt Dasan Shanaka was a little too defensive. He took the game deep. That is credit to him. But especially the fielders that were the boundary ropes, I felt they could have pushed. He could have pushed them in maybe a yard or two inside because that's how you save this. Make them save singles from being doubles. And I felt like he had pushed them right at the boundary ropes. I think Nasir Hussain on the air said the same thing as well, that fielders were way too back, and that allowed Ben Stokes and Chris Vokes to easily take those doubles and put some pressure off of them. I mean, that's where I felt somewhere Sri Lanka could have been a little bit more proactive in terms of their strategy. But overall, a good day out for Sri Lanka. They really came back. They changed a few things or tweaked a few things that have gone wrong for them in this tournament, especially their fielding. I think the main reason why the match came so close is because of their fielding, because some of the catches they took, for example, Sam Curran's catch under that pressure was really, really important. That kind of put a lot of pressure back on Ben Stokes. But overall, very, very close match. And that's what this World Cup was all about. I think it could have been a very funny day for England if they had ended up losing today. But thankfully for them, Ben Stokes was on the crease, and he is a man for big matches. Oh, I think Abel isn't here. I'll just continue till we get him back. But I mean, although what I would like to point out is the fact that a good start by both the teams in the power play. But this is the first time ever that England is the first team ever in this year's World Cup that has chased in Sydney Cricket Ground, because Sydney Cricket Ground has been infamous for being unable to chase. But I felt that's where England probably. England in the death overs when they really brought the things back, and when Sri Lanka couldn't score any more than 25 runs in that last 5 overs. If they had scored 20 runs more, that could have been really the end of the game for them. But unfortunately, though, Sri Lanka couldn't get going, and they lost quite a lot of wickets in that period. And then on in the next 6 overs, where England were on par and they really started playing well. And in the power play, England scored beautifully. And that's where, in that 10 overs, if you make it out of a 40-over game, I think that is where the game really changed for Sri Lanka. Because till that point in time, Sri Lanka were looking pretty much settled. But then, unfortunately, that is where England really wrestled the control back. And I think now we have Abel with me. Abel, I was just speaking about how, in that 10-over period, if you look at the 40 match, in that 10 overs from where Sri Lanka's 16th over began to maybe when England's power play ended, I think that's where England really got hold of the game.
Absolutely. I think the same as well. For Sri Lanka, they lost it totally in the death overs. What they could have possibly done was to maybe score extra 15 odd runs. I don't know what exactly they tried to do. Mark would spell over there. The 2 overs he had towards the back. And though he went for plenty of runs in the first over, he went for 17. And even Sam Curran went for 13 in his first over. So the two main pieces of England went for 30 odd in their first 2 overs. But from there on, the recovery they did. I thought the pitch was doing just fine. It was not I think we kind of exaggerated with what happened in the pitch. It was just a fine pitch. It was not like it was a ranked turner where batters couldn't bat at all.
I think the only
I think the
difficulty was in the pitch was that it was gripping a little bit. It was, it
yes.
was just stopping a little on the batsman, but it wasn't turning big.
It wasn't. It wasn't. I also thought Adil Rashid today bowled brilliantly, using his pace. He
Yeah,
varied his pace beautifully today. Today was one of his finest spells in the World Cup so far, and he really wanted this spell because he was someone who was a little low on confidence. If you look from the start of it, so I
yeah,
was pretty pleased with the way in which how they use Adil Rashid. If you remember, today they used Adil Rashid towards the back end from the 16th over. They wanted them to use the longer side of the boundary, but even Rajapaksha couldn't get him out, and that's how even Pathum Nissanka fell. If Pathum Nissanka could have stayed there till the 20th over, looked like a pitch where a batter had to stay till the 20th over. You also saw whilst
yeah.
England were chasing, it wasn't easy for a new batter to come in and score runs, except for that Vokes hitting a boundary of a cut shot of a ball which gave a lot of room. Other than that, no boundaries were
Yeah.
even able to come that easy. It was a tough pitch to take score runs off. And that's where maybe Pathum Nissanka, who looked very settled, could have possibly carried on. That was a difference in this game. If Pathum Nissanka would have batted till the 19th over, maybe it could have been at 150 or 155. I'm not saying that he would
I
have made a
mean,
lot of difference.
that's how it's been, right? I mean, SCG hasn't been a place where you've been able to chase. This is the first time ever a team has chased in SCG. And if I'm not wrong, I think this is the lowest score also that a team has scored in the first innings. I have to get back to you on that, but I think that's pretty much what's been the case. I think teams have scored a lot more than 150, 160.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember the first match that was held of the World Cup was right here, where New Zealand went on to score 200. I know it's not the same pitch because it's been used again, and many times this World Cup, and that's the reason why you saw the pitch behave a little bit more sluggishly because it's been used for a long time. But having said
Yeah.
that, I think today could have been the day, that if Sri Lanka had scored 10 more runs, I mean, 25 of the last 5 overs is bad, regardless of its death overs or middle overs. I think you don't score that kind of run rate in this format
I mean, I think we can
anyway,
pull up
in
the
any stage,
innings
let alone.
progression to understand where it went wrong for Sri Lanka in big time. If you look initially, they just lost one wicket in that opening 6 overs, went in run rate of 9, which was ideal. Then you started seeing the cluster of wickets falling down. They lost a couple of wickets through the middle overs, but remember the run rate had fallen drastically to 6.89. But there, in the last 5 overs, this is the biggest turning point for Sri Lanka over here. Went at 5 runs per over, only was able to score 25 runs in the last 5 overs. And that was the difference here. That was a major difference. And you saw for England, one can say that middle overs is kind of very similar to what Sri Lanka had in the death overs. But then England tried to compensate with a 7 run rate towards the death overs. And that was a big factor towards the end. And England got off to a flyer as well. If you look, 11 runs per over in the opening 6 overs really makes a difference. The way in which Alex Hales took on the bowling, and even Sri Lankan spinners had no respite there. So that is the ultimate difference if you look in the entirety of the game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for me, in the power play, at least you had to save your spinners back because I felt the spinners were really effective once the ball got older and
Mm,
once the pitch was the sluggishness of the pitch and the older ball combined together. That's when the spinners
yeah.
were difficult to get away. You saw Adil Rashid utilize that to the maximum. That's why you have to give credit to Josh Butler. He did not bring on spinners, till that power play had gotten over. And I
Yeah.
felt that is where they really did well. But Sri Lanka did not, to be very honest, Sri Lanka did not have the resources to actually push the spinners back. They had to bring the spinners in the power play, and that's where when the ball is new, I felt it was much easier to strike. And also, I looked at if you look at the match throughout, you'll see that Sri Lankan batters, especially towards the end of their innings, they played square of the wicket a lot more. But you know that on a sluggish pitch, when the ball isn't coming onto your bat, cross-batted shots are very difficult to get away with. And that's where England, for instance, what they did. I know they lost a lot of wickets, and maybe some of them are very cheap, or what do you say? Some of them are very soft dismissals. But
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
saw was an intent for them to play down the ground, especially someone like Ben Stokes did not play a lot of cross-batted shots. He played a lot of shots in the V, in front
Yeah.
of the batsman. That is where I also felt Sri Lanka really did not do well. But credit, of
Yeah.
course, has to be given to the English bowlers because I mean both Mark Wood and Sam Curran did not give them the length to play down the
Mm,
ground. I mean, they
yeah.
realized after the power play that the pitch was getting sluggish and they pulled the length back.
Yeah. Something which you have to give credit to Sam Curran because his improvement as a bowler has been drastic. I know we have to give
Yes,
credit to Mark Wood
I
as well
will
because
take
Mark.
credit now. I think CSK should be given credit.
No, I
It's
don't think
another
it's
product of
CSK
CSK.
is the fact. I mean, leave CSK aside, because Sam Curran, the bowler since last 3 months, especially post the injury, because remember he has not played the IPL, right? And
Yeah.
since last 3 months, his ability to bowl the depth, which has really gone up, and that's something which I don't know what
And
he has really done,
yeah,
right? I won't say it's IPL he has done. I think it's his personal work or even the English team
yeah.
management really communicating to him, saying that see you are going to be bowling in the depth in this tournament, and you have to practice according to that. He, alongside Arshdeep Singh, has been the two most impressive left-arm pacers in this entire tournament. The way they've been able to execute the Yorkers to perfection. Because Sam Curran, we all know how good he was, maybe bowling in the opening overs, coming in the middle, picking up a couple of wickets here and there. But now, him picking up 7 wickets and just going for 32 runs in 7 overs is a remarkable feat in the death overs. I don't think a lot of bowlers have ever had that kind of feat in T20 World Cups
And
in
I
death
think,
overs, and he's been able to
I
do that
mean,
quite well.
Sam Curran was always doing well for England whenever he got the chance, but he was never given that chance because his role initially used to be that middle order sort of an enforcer, and England had so many of them. Chris Wokes, Mark Wood, all of these players would end up doing that for England anyway. So that's where Sam Curran had to find a niche, and England had suffered a lot when it comes to death over bowling. And
Yeah,
Sam Curran has been that, what do you say, an answer to the troubles that Owen Morgan face, and the troubles that, for instance, someone like, Josh Butler has been facing. I mean, England,
yeah.
in fact, has been in the last 2 years the fourth worst, that is the fifth worst bowling lineup. And even Bangladesh or West
Hmm.
Indies and Sri Lanka have done better in terms of death
I think
bowling in the
as
last
we
two
talk
years.
about it, let's pull up the graphs of English bowlers in today's game and understand where it really went right for them. If you look at that graph, you can understand that Ben Stokes also was not bad. You know, his economy was 8, but he picked up a wicket at a crucial stage. And remember, I'll start off with the main bowler. It has to be Sam Curran and Mark Wood. Mark Wood's 3 wickets towards the end really broke the back of Sri Lankan onslaught because they could have easily scored 155 on this pitch and put England under tremendous pressure. But again, Adil Rashid going at an economy of 4 today, 4 overs, 16 runs, a 1 wicket of Patum Nisanka, who was a danger man. Excellent stuff from him. And also there, Sam Curran, he always goes under the radar. Sam Curran,
Yeah.
6.75 runs after him going at 13 runs per over in the first over. The way in which he came back into this innings, fantastic stuff from Sam Curran. And I'll also like to point out, for Sam Curran, it's not been easy. Sam Curran's role clarity had to be made, and the way in which he came back into this English team, and the way in which his role clarity, I'm not confident how good is his batting at this point. Maybe his batting has slightly depleted compared to his bowling. But now also let's pull up the Sri Lankan batting, right? Sri Lankan batting. If you look, Patum Nisanka was their standout batter, scored 48% of the runs, and only consumed 38% of the balls. But if you look on the other end, someone like a Banuka Rajapaksha, he could have been the difference in this kind of pitch, right? Because
I
he
mean, if
got
you
off to a decent start, but left it away towards the end.
if you look at, I mean, when we show the England graph as well, you'll see that the top order, to be very honest, has been the batters in today's game, because the ball as new the I mean, as early as you came in, you got the better end of the spectrum, because you got the newer ball, much harder ball which you could get away with. You'll see even England's progression is also put up. I mean, England's resources use also is put up. You'll see that even their top order only perform well, but you see the difference between the contribution of the top order that England had and the top order that the top order that Sri Lanka had. Sri Lanka, if you look at, maybe even Kushal Mendes to an extent did a decent job, but I felt Kushal Mendes and Dhananjay De Silva, they should have contributed a lot more, because it ended up being Patam Nisanka's match, and that's where I felt Sri Lanka really took a backseat. If they had, if those three had contributed a lot more, and especially the way I think Dhananjay De Silva and Kushal Mendes got out, it was really disappointing. Kushal Mendes played probably the worst way to get out, because of fielder Liam Livingston, I think, is the one who took his catch. Yeah, Liam
Yeah.
Livingston was just moved into that position of ball before by Butler, and that's exactly where he fell. So I mean, I don't know if that was a there was a lack of field awareness, or maybe it was a confidence that Kushal Mendes had that he could clear the boundary ropes. But either way, I felt, that at that stage when you're really getting going, maybe you should have picked up a shot which could have, which you had a better option with. I mean, it's not like, there are five fielders spread outside and you don't have options are limited. You have an option to play it a little bit more finer or a little bit more squarer than just at that particular point in time, because that wicket was in the power play, Kushal Mendes' wicket, and that's where I felt Kushal Mendes could have been a little bit more smarter about the way he played that shot. And if they hadn't lost any wicket there, I think they could have really done well, because it seemed like the first 10 overs were the better was the better period to score runs.
Absolutely. I think that's something which Sri Lanka will be truly hurting at this point. But let's also pull up the graphs of English batters today to understand where it really went right for them. If you understand English batters, they got off to brilliant starts, but then through the middle overs, they were troubled by spin, especially with the likes of Hasaranga bowling. He bowled brilliantly once again. One thing which Sri Lankan spinners did rightly was they were trying to bowl quicker through the power play, and they tried to all of a sudden after the power play they understood this is not working on this track, so let's lower down our pace and try to vary our pace a lot
Yeah.
more and also our lengths. Something which really gave them a lot of success today. And also, they might have taken a leaf out of Adil Rashid's book as to how he bowled. English batters, Josh Butler, I would say he scored 28 runs, but a strike rate of 120. Maybe that's what the situation demanded. Ben Stokes was one of the pick of the batters. We'll talk about him because his situation was totally different today. But then Alex Hale's innings, how important was it? If you look in the context of the game, that was the most important innings in terms of giving that impetus for them to chase the score.
I mean, very honestly, if Alex Hales hadn't played that innings, I think England would have lost the match. As simple as that. You look at the strike rates of everyone. I think only Chris Wokes has a higher strike rate than him, which is because he only
Yeah.
played three deliveries. And when you score a boundary out of that one delivery you face, you're automatically getting a strike rate push anyway. When you only face three deliveries, but his innings was the most important one because no one else had that kind of strike rate as well. Patam Nisanka had a strike rate of 148. But aside from these two, they did not really have that kind of any. No one else had a striker of that level, and there's a reason for that. As I said, yesterday when we spoke, you make hay when the sun shines, and that's what both Patam Nisanka and Alex Hales did. I think the only difference was Alex Hales made more hay, so as to
Yeah.
speak, because he scored at a much faster rate, which gave England that cushion really. Because if you look at the middle overs that England had, that kind of middle overs can decimate any batting lineup. It was just an absolute destruction of their batting lineup, so as to speak. They really imploded in that middle order. But the only reason why they were able to stay afloat, or why the run probability was, I mean, the win probability was higher, was because of this innings by Alex Hales. Otherwise, they would have had to chase, let's say, I think 1 or 2 runs per ball, and that would have been very difficult on this pitch.
Isn't there any other way we can join the chat with audio? Uh, I didn't get you. Can you just repeat that question again? I didn't understand. Maybe you want to join
I,
this stream with us, or is there
I think
something
he
which you
wants
want?
to send an audio. Maybe that's that. I think for that you need to have. I think we can't do it on
I
YouTube.
mean,
We
we
can do it on
can take
Spotify.
fans for our stream. So we will love to take maybe once the group stage is over, maybe build up to semi-final. We'll try to take as many people as possible into our stream to understand the pulse of how it is going. So if you want to join the stream with us, you can. You can. I mean, it's not. We'll be opening it out for all the people to join. I know a lot of people who wants to join. We get messages on that. So, but yeah, we'll take your questions up first up. Couple already had predicted that it is going to be Australia who are going to be kicked out today, and he was spot on there. And congratulations, Salim, for that feed because you truly deserve it. You've been playing fantasy on Boom 11 for the longest period possible, and great for that. Natasha says those guys are Asian champion. They look so bad in this tournament. Yeah, we didn't mention when they even won the Asia Cup. The Australian World Cup is going to be so much different. It is not going to be easy for any Asian teams. Very few
But then
Asian
we
teams
did
are able
brand
to.
them as dark horses, and today they would have really, really come. And they came true as dark horses. They pushed England to the brink. And I think if you
They did.
realize, if Australia had won yesterday's match with a very good run rate, things could have been really, really, really tricky today for England. And that's where
Yeah,
England
yeah.
were a little bit more confident. I imagine if England had a certain condition, let's say England had to chase down this score by the 16th over, 17th over. That's where I think England would have imploded even more than what they did today. The
Yeah.
pressure
So
seemed to get to them also. So I think,
leave all that. If Afghanistan would have won today, yesterday, Sri Lanka were in with a chance to even go to the semi-final today. So imagine
yeah,
that scenario coming
yeah,
up. So they were
yeah.
very close of making to a semi-final spot. They just did not. They ended up on 4 points. I mean, they will take a lot of learning from this. It's probably the first tour to Australia for a lot of these players, and I think they'll go up from here on. As a T20 team, they still have a lot of development left, especially when it comes to the longer formats and 50 overs and Test cricket. I think that'll be it. And Rob Key is back again. He says going for the Indian curries and savours some Sri Lankan curries. Yeah, last night also Rob Key had come saying that he is looking for some Sri Lankan seafood curries today, and and he's absolutely loving it today. So, and Michelle from Australia has joined us. Geez, we are out, and what a shocking tournament. It is okay.
I
We've
think
been
it's the host country's curse or the defending champions curse. I think defending
yeah.
champions curse is much more because no team has ever repeated a World Cup win in T20 format at least.
It is very tough. It is very tough.
Yeah.
Even for India in 2007 they won. 2009 they went to England and got knocked out in the group stage. So
I
it has
think
always
maybe we
happened.
will when we cover the group stage of the Super 12, maybe we will analyze all the teams because and we might even bring some graphs about it. But for now, I mean, I think Australia were really chasing. I mean, really playing catch up once that once they lost the way they lost to New Zealand, and once the match was washed out versus England and Australia. I mean, England and Australia because that kind of a net run rate loss, and then right after that, that one match which could have decided this group, both going against Australia in many ways. I would say that that's the reason why Australia kind of got. I mean, Australia kind of had thrown out of the World Cup because if that one match, England versus Australia, was played and if Australia had gone on to win it, that would have really decided it in Australia's favor. But because Australia had such a net run rate loss, also, I mean, not to really get into the analysis, but also the way they lost to Ireland, that will also hurt them quite a lot because in that Ireland match,
Yeah,
I mean, they won against Ireland, sorry, but the
yeah,
way they
yeah,
won
true.
against Ireland, that match they could have really, finished the game by 11th or 12th over, but they gave Lorcan Trucker some chance to really go after the bowling, and they won that match by not as good a net run rate as they, lost against New Zealand. So they could never really recover, and that's why they lost them. That's why they're out of the tournament.
Rightfully so, because something which we did discuss time and time again was the first game, which really
Yeah,
hampered their chances of net run rate, would come to haunt them at some stage. And that's exactly what happened. We did predict this at the start of the tournament that something or the other might be really coming to haunt them. And today, if you understand today's game as well, you had to rely on another opposition. It's never good when you're relying on its other team to get you a result. It doesn't happen. The number of times that has happened is very few, and especially a lower ranked team. If there were two teams who are of equal the group calling in
skill
the
set. I
mobile.
mean,
Wait, I'll just take this question. Maybe I
I
mean
think maybe
we are
we
not sure
will
we'll show
look
that.
into it. Maybe not this World Cup, but
We will
soon we will
definitely
try and find a way for you guys
we'll
to
try
all
to bring in as
get
many
something
people as
out.
possible.
Yeah.
Maybe we understand a lot of people have already requested us that they want to join the stream and give their opinion. I think we'll try to do something like a fan banter. I'm in touch with a few English fans as well. If you remember, Gaurav Pandit is an English fan, and few Indian fans can come over and give that banter on and see how it goes. I mean, I love the fan banter segment, something which we want to do for the finals at least. Very tough to get a lot of fans of different countries at one stage because
Yeah.
a lot of fans will be supporting Zimbabwe. It's very tough to get that. So at least when there are like handful of teams left in the tournament, it's easier to get them on board and understand the pulse. But yeah, as we were talking about, especially in a tournament like World Cup, that first win is so important, and that's what sets the tone. And after the first game, we almost knew it was going to be tough. It was definitely going to be tough for Australia to really get their act right. And Satyajit also rightly mentions that Australia, they were out after the first game is what he means. Yeah, of course they were not out technically, but then yeah, they were
They were always
practically
playing catch up, at least. Yeah.
they were playing catch up cricket, and we all predicted this at the start of the end of the first match that New Zealand are looking very good, and it's always up once you have the net run rate down in a tournament like this. It is very tough to recover from there, and we've seen with a lot of teams across formats how it impacts. And if you're relying on a team which are slightly weaker, and when you really want to rely on it, doesn't happen. In an IPL game, you can still rely because most of their teams are evenly balanced. And it's very rare that a team is too dominant. Form might be different, but when it comes to the balance of squad, it's almost evenly balanced. That's why I think relying on Sri Lanka to defeat England, it was a bit too much. It is, but it almost came true. But you can't blame at the end of the day. That's how things have been for them. Let's look at Pacers versus spinners today to understand who picked the most number of wickets. If you look at Sri Lankan Pacers, they picked up 2 wickets, but they went at an economy rate of 10. Now that's what really defined this game.
Yeah.
10 runs per over in a wicket, where English Pacers just went at 7, picked up 6 wickets. Sri Lankan spinners were the pick of them, but still they did not have Pacers to support them. They were just the Pacers was like a leakage. They just letting runs go. The pressure, whatever the spinners were building, they just let it go.
To be honest, I think it was much worse for them in the power play. They did come back. Both Kasun Rajata and Lahiru Kumara came back in the later half of the innings and I mean made contributions. But in that first power play, that's where they really leaked a lot of runs, and that was my point exactly at the start of the live as well. That Englishmen, they were able to keep use their pacers to kind of still, I would say, mitigate the damage that was done in the power play in comparison to what Sri Lankan Pacers did. Because I mean, Dasun Shanaka had to bring in his spinners in the power play, or else they would have really gone for a lot more runs. But if both Manish Tikshana and Harsaranga started bowling in the middle overs, I think, and
Yeah.
balled out in the middle overs, you would have seen maybe a lot better chances for Sri Lanka in that half to really secure the win. But because in the power play they went at 11.62 as we saw already. If they could, because they could have been much worse if he had brought in pacers. Because who else was his option? His option was one himself, Dasun Shanaka, or else he could have brought in Karna Ratne, which both of them aren't exactly power play bowlers at least, and they could have maybe even gone for 80, 84 runs if only the pacers had bowled. And that's been one of the issues with Sri Lanka. We discussed in the preview as well. That's the reason why they'll struggle in Australia, because their pacers haven't been the best, and they are going through injury as well. We have to give it to Sri Lanka because Chamikame is not there. Chamira is not there. Rather, Dushmanta
Yeah.
Chamira is not there, and I think it was Madhushan, who's
Madhushanka, all these ballers.
Madhushanka, all of these pacers who did extremely well for the Asia Cup. I think it was Natasha who pointed out, right? They were Asian champions, but they were Asian champions because of these pace bowlers who really took hold of the power play, who were able to make the ball talk, especially the two left armers. But they were not present in this World Cup, and that's the reason why he kind of struggled. We saw once Chamika did have some contributions in the group stage, but the moment they were injured, I think this Sri Lankan bowling attack was always going to suffer, because then they had only the spinners to rely on.
I mean, truly, and it was always going to be catch-up cricket, as we already mentioned. The moment for Sri Lanka, it was not an easy tournament for Sri Lanka as well. If you look on the other side, Sri Lanka, they played their first match, and you knew that this team could have gone a long way. They defeated Ireland in the first match, but the game against Australia really, dented their chances because Marcus Stoinis took the attack onto their spinners, and from there on, it was always tough. And I thought even against New Zealand, they had a chance to really get things right. They could have capitalized on that because they got New Zealand for 15 for 3 and dropping so many catches when the game situation did not demand that, and you are letting someone like Glenn Phillips are giving him so many lives, it does not really help you in a tournament like World Cup. And Glenn Phillips, with the kind of form he's been in, he's going to punish you. And that's exactly what happened. That is what really derailed Sri Lanka's momentum in this tournament, because that game 15 for 3 New Zealand could have been 15 for 4 there. There would have been a different game. Maybe New Zealand would have been all out in a score of 110, 120, and Sri Lanka would have chased that down quite comfortably. I know they were 5 down in the power play, it was tough, but then the situation would have been different. New Zealand bowlers would have been under pressure. So that's what really, gave New Zealand momentum in that game, and Sri Lanka really went down. And if you look, if
Yeah,
that game, New Zealand would have lost that game, New Zealand would have had to face repercussions, and now maybe Australia would have qualified as well. So Sri Lanka
yeah,
had a lot of things in their hand, but they just not capitalize at the right time. So that's where I feel Sri Lanka let go of it. Sri Lanka really let go of it. There were some basic errors which they could have done a lot better. So as a team, they will really like to regroup from here on, look at what is the possibilities, what are the possible things what they can do in the next World Cup, because next World Cup is in a couple of years time. Hopefully they'll have a lot of players fit, and these spinners will even develop further from here on. But let's understand where things stand and how did the match change from here on. If you look at the ball by ball breakdown, there are 45 dot balls played by both their teams. So here is the biggest change, right? And even Sri Lanka scored more runs by running as well. But the only change what comes here is the number of boundaries hit. And it's not even number of sixes, it's number of boundaries which really makes a difference. It was a very close game at the end of the day. It was not even a game where it was comfortably won by England. It is a game of margins once again. And that's what I think England really got the upper hand, isn't it?
yeah. I think just that slight bit of boundaries, and that's, I think, if you really look at the power play, right, that's where it really came. The power play, England scored 70 runs, and I think, as you say, when it comes to bowling, if a bowling team takes 3 wickets, then really they are in the game. I think the same way, if you concede 60 plus runs in the power play, I would say then you are really out of the game as a bowling unit, especially when 70 runs is just about half of the runs that you have scored. I mean, 142. I mean, chasing 142 when England scored 70, it became runner ball, even less than runner ball. Then Sri Lanka had to really claw back into that game. and really bring it in. That's, for example, I mean, really come back. That's why the middle overs really help them. But as I already said, when in the middle overs, if you score at 4.78 runs per over and you lose 5 wickets, I don't think any team survives it unless you've scored 70 in the power play. So
Yeah.
that is somewhere I felt in the 10 overs from Sri Lanka's 15th over to when Sri Lanka was batting the 15th over to England's 6th over. That's where the game really shifted in England's favor. And Sri Lanka, whatever they tried, they could never really wrestle the momentum back, because even when England had lost 5 wickets, 6 wickets, you felt like England was still in the hunt. Or England without ones that was still on top, and Sri Lanka had to do something extraordinary still. And I mean, if only Sri Lanka had restricted them to 60 or even 55, 56, then things could have been very different.
Yeah, that's something which Sri Lanka will be looking at. And for England, they will take positives out of this game, but then at the same time, they'll know that this has not been the best of games for them, especially the middle order did not respond well. Now they'll be going to Adelaide, so it's a much better batting wicket. So, and I believe that English team will really relish playing the Adelaide wicket. If you look, there are shorter boundaries on the square. The ball does not turn a lot, and even when it comes to the bounce or when it comes to movement, Adelaide wicket does not really offer a lot of movement. So this could be English team's best possible wicket they're going to play cricket on. That's why Indian team, if they're going to come up against them in the semi-final, they will be wary of them, and it's not going to be easy for the Indian team to come up against them and actually fight, because Adelaide against England, you will really have to know what you want to do against them. Is it going to bat first or ball first? I think the English team will be very dangerous chasing in that Adelaide ground under lights, where the ball is going to come onto the bat even better, and with the likes of Liam Livingston, Moeen Ali, all these lads can use a shorter boundaries to the
I
effect.
mean,
And you know
it
how
is going to be
powerful.
two teams. It is going to be two teams who have made their way into the group. If I mean, that is if India really comes in, or any team. I mean, if India, I'm talking about India or Pakistan also. If you take, because either of them stand a chance right now to get into the finals. Of course, India is in the driver's seat, or you would say India has a pole position of sorts when it comes to their race to semi-finals. But if either of the teams get in the semi-finals, and if India probably are going to face New Zealand or England, but let's say that India does top the group, which is how it might seem, at this point in time, they win against Zimbabwe. Most likely, that's what's going to happen. Uh, I mean, either way, but if India or England come together and face in the semi-finals, it would be two teams that have been very scrappy, to say the least. Two teams who have scrapped through. I mean, most of you might say that India has done very well, but you look at the way India's won; they haven't been perfect wins. They haven't been dominate wins that India's dominated. It has been wins that India is. I mean, wins where India lost the momentum and turned the game back to their favor. England has done something similar, but I feel if India does face England in the semi-finals, that's where India kind of holds an edge, because the matches that they really struggled in India were ones against Bangladesh and Pakistan. And those two matches, I mean, and the ones where England struggled were against Sri Lanka, Ireland,
And
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan.
So that's where you see the quality of oppositions India faced on in a total. If you look at it and you look at the total of, I mean, if you look at the skill sets of the ones against whom England struggled against, you would say that India maybe faced much stronger opposition, especially the Pakistan game. So maybe that's why I feel India has a slight bit of advantage, but both the teams definitely, and if they enter into the enter into the semi-finals, they are entering with a lot of glaring holes in their
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
lineups and their performances.
I think India have actually tried to fill a lot of holes from this tournament from the moment they started to now. So India will be slightly positive, but England also will be very positive in terms of the kind of returns they've gotten from Joss
Yeah.
Butler now, from Alex Sales, and especially Moeen Ali is a good player. He did not perform today, but that doesn't mean he's a bad player. And Adil Rashid is coming into form, as someone also already mentioned in our comments. They are peaking at the right time, and that's something which England will be knowing that this is a tournament for them to peak at the right time and go all the way. And remember, this is the first time ever in a long while India and England are facing an ICC knockout. If they face an ICC knockout, they're not facing an ICC knockout since 1987. So a long way away. Last time they faced an ICC knockout was in a 1987 World Cup semi-final, where India lost to England, and it was in England Australia final in 1987 where Australia was crowned the champion. But since then, they've not faced an ICC knockout in my memory. Correct me if I'm wrong, and not certainly in a T20 World Cup knockout as well. So we always wanted this India England. For the last three World Cups, we all predicted India England semi-final, India England final. Finally, the moment is going to almost come. It's not
Yeah.
yet there, So let's hope it's an India
I
England
mean,
semi-final
but
because
then I suppose, if you look at the golden rule of ICC tournaments, as I have been saying again and again, is to beat Australia. See, New Zealand, it could this be New Zealand's year now? Because New Zealand is the one team which has beaten Australia, and the reason why Australia are out of the World Cup would be interesting to see now how they do in the semi-finals.
I
Or
don't think so
if they
because
don't win the World Cup, maybe this will be the first time that the rule is broken or such.
I mean not certainly because a lot of teams have beaten Australia and they've not
But they
gone
are
to
not in the
India.
finals, right? I mean, England and New Zealand are
I
the only
mean
two teams, and England has not
if
beaten
you look in
Australia.
2012 World Cup, 2010 World Cup, a lot of teams have, not no, 29 2009 World Cup as well. Australia haven't, people have been, people have lost to Australia and still gone on to win the World Cup. So I don't care about these kind of stats to be very
No, this is
fair.
not a
And
stat exactly to very honest. It's much more of a coincidence, but it's always there. I think it's always Australia as a team to beat at an ICC tournament, and it's something. I think something is always amiss when they don't go into a knockout of the ICC tournament, because they're always there. They're that perennial presence, and I think
in that
that
case, maybe India should have won the 2016 World Cup because we
yeah, I
defeated
think that's
Australia.
the thing I came in my, that's the tournament that came in my mind. 2016, India beat Australia, but we went on to
India
lose
beat
to West
Australia
Indies.
and India were on course to go on to win the World Cup because
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
was said. Virat Kohli played that magnificent innings in Mohali, then everything was said. It was your home ground. Then West Indies came as a unit, then took you away. So I don't think so. These you don't know because for South Africa they will be up against New Zealand. South Africa is a good team, and in Sydney, I know South Africa lost and New Zealand have an upper hand in Sydney, but if South Africa bats first and scores anything close to maybe even
But we still need to see. I
170,
think in terms of net earn rate, maybe South Africa is the one who's probably going to top the charts, right? In Group B, they've got a very good net earn rate, if I'm not wrong. And I think if India wins, probably be second.
yeah. This is the beauty of the game of where it becomes roller coaster. Yeah, absolutely. Tanya, it's Virat's birthday. Yeah, it is Virat's birthday.
So
So we
yes,
wish on behalf of Boomer 11 a very happy birthday to Virat Kohli. Wishing him a lot more runs and hopefully that trophy at the end of next week. So that's going to be his birthday gift. His, his birthday gift from the team side will be to get him that trophy. One trophy he has not had in his cabinet. He's won almost every other ICC trophy as a player. Except that and maybe World Test Championship as well. But now talking on the major ICC trophies and these two are Champions Trophy he has won, World Cup he has won in his first World
yeah.
Cup. So T20 World Cup is something which has eluded him. He's been the man of the tournament. He's been man of the
But I mean,
tournament two of
if
guys.
he wins, I think if he wins the World Cup in this stage of his career, he'll be more happy about it. I mean, no disrespect to Virat Kohli, but in the 2011 World Cup, it was not Virat Kohli's team, but now this is definitely Virat Kohli's team, or it has been for quite some time. And so,
Yeah,
being one of the senior pros to win the World Cup will mean a lot more to him.
yeah. Not just that. I mean, he's been in the form of his life once again, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
after the kind of
A
performance he's
lot of
put in, you
2016 vibes, to be very honest. I just hope the lack of West Indies in the semi-final goes our way.
yeah, and you don't want to put a target. At least you want to chase it down, and you don't want to be bowling no balls in a semi-final. So
Yeah.
hope India does the basics right, and let's hope Indian team is able to gift that trophy to Virat Kohli at the end of maybe next Sunday. So we're just 1 week away from
Yeah,
the World Cup final, guys. We are
that's
very near to
incredible.
the finish line is already here. You can see it. India are 3 games away from lifting that trophy. You know it. You know it. You know you are very close. So take one game at a time. So tomorrow is one game. Don't think too far ahead. First Zimbabwe, then England, then whoever comes in the final. So that's how India should be going. And tomorrow it's Melbourne again. Big game for Virat Kohli. 2 weeks ago he lit that stage up. And I think it's going to be a big game for India. I think we'll be previewing that game in a couple of hours' time. I really want you all to join us then. We'll be talking about what players India are going to be doing, how should India be wary of the Zimbabwean pacers, especially with the likes of Ngarave and Muzarbani, two bowlers who have really troubled a lot of batters through the course of the tournament. And let's see how Indian team really comes up because if you have to be the world champions, you have to beat all the teams. That's it. That's it. If you have to be the world
Yeah.
champions, you can't say that I got England now, I'm getting South Africa. You have to be the world champions by beating everybody, beating all the top teams. That's the only way you're going to get the tag of world champions. And I think India are good enough. If you have to be the world champions, you have to. You'll falter at some stage through the journey. I think India did against South Africa, but now it's time to really regroup and go up again. And I thought they had a very good game. Last 9 overs against Bangladesh was top notch. India, they were spot on with their plans and execution on the field. They just showed like they're world champions. They really won. And if it's India versus England in the semi-final, there's a knockout which we all waited for the last 3-4 years. It did not happen
I mean, but we
since
still never know. You still never know because England's qualified second in the group, New Zealand's qualified first, and tomorrow will decide whether India or South Africa go through and which
yeah,
position.
that's, yeah,
Pakistan is
exactly.
still in it. and it's going to be a hell of a day tomorrow in this tournament when it comes to the World Cup. I certainly hope so, Kapil. I hope the way you predicted Australia being out of the World Cup. I really hope it's India's World Cup. That'll mean a
No,
lot
just
because
wait.
as Indians we've
You
been
have
waiting
to
for
wait
the
for
silverware for quite
SS98 to
some.
predict. SS98 will be like, can India win the World Cup? Then India will win the World Cup. I hope we love our fans, man. I just love the people who are coming to the stream on daily
Yeah,
basis and showing the love they
absolutely.
are, and
I think
it just feels
you
like
all of you add a lot to our live, and the quality of the live is just enhanced because of all of you are here and your questions and your comments. Sometimes it really opens our eyes as well to some possibilities that we haven't thought of.
yeah, absolutely. And that's something which is great. A lot of people, we try to do banter as well here and there. But yeah, talking about that for England, before we end the live, we have to talk about England English team at this point. Uh, what do you think is one area they'll be really looking and will be slightly concerned at this point? Is it going to be their spin department? Do you think they can really, strengthen their spin department a little bit more? But in Adelaide, you wouldn't really need it.
I mean, we saw the kind of Adelaide pitch that was there yesterday, where both New Zealand and Australia and then Afghanistan struggled to bat because of the kind of spin. Like spin was very important, yes, yesterday. But then again, on the Bangladesh India game, spin was not at all important. And Akshar Patel, I mean, Ashwin, for instance, went for quite a bit of runs because again that ball was skidding on. So we don't know which Adelaide is really going to turn up in semi-finals, and that's what's going to be interesting. If the rain stays away, maybe we'll see the Adelaide that we saw yesterday. But if the rain is there around a little bit, we might see the Adelaide and India Bangladesh game. So depending
Yeah.
on that, again, the semi-finals really change around. Uh, then that's why I think that the unpredictability of Australian weather has really added to the unpredictability of the World Cup. So that remains to be seen. But one area I will really am disappointed because I think spin, you cannot do anything at this point in time. You are playing all the spinners in your squad. But middle order has really been the concern, specifically if you talk about Harry Brooks. I think Harry Brooks and Liam Livingston, two people who you would have expected to do a lot more. Today, again, both of them got out on a very very disappointing way. Liam Livingston playing skied the ball, got caught, and then Harry Brooks just gifted one back to Dhananjay De Silva. At that stage, I think both of them, either of them had stayed, England would have won this a lot more comfortably. Even if either of them had stayed, and even if England had won the match in 19.4 overs, you wouldn't have said that England has come very close. It would have been this closer shift because you have to also realize England were technically playing with almost 9 wickets because they had. I mean, David Malan had pulled his hamstring. I think if I'm not wrong, we don't know
Yeah.
exactly. I think the nature of
Growing,
his
growing,
injury.
growing.
I think yeah,
Growing.
groin. Correct. He tweaked his groin, and he wouldn't have been running. And in
Yeah.
Australia, you know that running between the wickets is very important. So that is where England were sort of playing with 9 wickets in hand. And Harry Brooks and Liam Livingston throwing the wicket away in that kind of a position has really did really hurt England, and it could have been much more worse if England had lost the match. So those two specifically, I feel, need to really get going. Liam Livingston, we know he has got it in him to do well in Australia. He's done well in BBL. Harry Brooks is one big question mark now, at least in Australia.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting game for England from here on. Whoever they face, it could be either South Africa, and we might have the 1992 World Cup lineup as well, where South Africa, Pakistan, England, and New Zealand had qualified to that knockouts. So you don't know anything. Just wait for it. So tomorrow is a big day for Group Two. It's the deciding day. No team has qualified yet from Group Two. That's the most funniest part about the group. And remember, tomorrow's first game will be starting at morning IST 5:30 UAE time 4 a.m. So that's the first game, South Africa versus Netherlands. It's a very early start tomorrow. So it's a long day of cricket. As you know, Group Two always brings its triple headers, and that's what we have. Indian game will be starting later on in the day in Melbourne. Weather looks clear in all the parts, so there's not going to be any washout, and that's very clear now. You will have a result. Whoever will have to win will have to win on merit and not based on Duckworth lows or whatever. So India will have to also play really good cricket. So Ashwin in the press conference rightly mentioned Zimbabwe are a good team. We're not going to take any team
Yeah.
lightly. And also, Indian team looks very determined at this point, to go out there and
Hmm.
play their A game. And Ashwin also did say that we not play our A game till now. So we are yet to
Yeah.
see India peak at that level. And we all be hoping, we all and all of us will be hoping that, India peaks when it matters the most. So that's what matters. And we all know India in some of the
And I
earlier
think
tournaments
now
peaked
KL
very
Rahul
early.
coming into form, every Indian player, maybe except for Dinesh Karthik, has really stepped up to the stage when it was required. Maybe tomorrow's Dinesh Karthik's day. and everything has been in terms of performances. I know it's not been 100%, but if you look at this tournament, I think you cannot look at one player in the main 11 and say he or she hasn't performed well. We've seen Ashwin do well in the Pakistan match. We've seen Virat Kohli has been doing it again. KL Rahul came good. Rohit Sharma's done well against Netherlands, but you would expect him to do a lot more against Zimbabwe and in the coming games. So in a way, I think everyone has stepped up at least once when it came to it. So that is something that's going for India, and we hope tomorrow India wins comfortably and really looks forward to the semi-final berth, because if they don't qualify, it'll really hurt Indian team.
I certainly will, because you've done a lot of things right in this
Yeah,
tournament. You've had a build up for the longest possible time. You've been preparing for this tournament since the start of 2022, and now all the focus
maybe
was
since
totally
the
on this
end of
tournament.
the 2021 World Cup, I think India's been really looking forward to this one
Yeah,
World Cup.
and India really wants this World Cup, and you know
Yeah,
how determined the players have been. You can see it in their faces how determined they are to really go out there and get it again ICC tournament after 9 years. They know the wait has been very long. They've lost so many ICC tournaments coming very close, so they finally want to nail it down and say that okay, we've got one that'll really take the monkey off the back. Then India can really
yeah,
focus on the next World Cup, which is 1 year away, which is 2023. But if we lose this one, it's really kind of going to demoralize Team India going into the next World Cup. I know it's a 50 overs one, but then pressure is going to be even more to that tournament because you're playing at home, and it's never easy to play at home and win a tournament. Though it says the conditions are going to favor you, but it's never easy. So on that note, we'll end it right here. We'll come for a preview. We'll come for a preview of the Indian match and Pakistan was a Bangladesh game by 11 at night. So I hope you all join us then. It's a Saturday night, so you can join us on a Saturday night enjoying some sports, or maybe you can go and have some fun outside. Either way, do watch us even if you have done the live, and subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and also pick play and win with Boomer 11. The link is in the bio. Click on it, go to our app, play the predictor contest, play all the fantasy contests out there. The football World Cup starts in 14 days from now. It's all set for an exciting sporting season, and Boomer 11 is going to make you and add some flavor to it by making you win a lot of prizes for absolute free of cost. Have a good time and take care.